Welcome, everybody, to another Hillcrest Online Cafe. I'm Pastor Andrew, and today I have my coffee with me, and I've got one of my best friends, Paul Beale, with me. And Paul has helped to bring out some gifts that I thought were dead. He brought me back some passion for drawing and making some impacts in that. He's also been a right-hand man for youth ministry and on our CE team, and he's just been an all-around great friend over the years. So I want to help you guys get to know Paul like I know him. So Paul, let's begin with some questions for you. And you've been part of Hillcrest for a long time. How did you find your way to Hillcrest?
Well, I grew up in a Catholic church. Betty grew up at Douglas Avenue Christian Church. When we got married, we kind of made the decision that we were, which church do we choose? We just thought we're just going to go find our own church, right? And that took a little longer than expected. We attended a few churches and never felt that sense of this is where we're supposed to be. And then we went into Hillcrest about 26 years ago. We had actually gone a little before that, a handful of times. With her father had been going there then, and her mother. And then we went there, and the moment I kind of knew I was in the right place, I walked in one day. Really, nobody really knew me. I shook the pastor's hand. It was Pastor Beale. And I walked in one day. Betty had been going to the Sunday school, and I just kind of thought I'll just go sit at the back away from everybody. And I come in the front door from near where your office is, and every row moved over. I think it was like Sterling and George and just a whole bunch and Bill, and everybody just moved over. And I thought, well, and there's a few more gentlemen too that are not with us anymore. And I thought to myself, well, I guess they want me here, so I'll stay. And that's kind of the moment I realized, well, they're very welcoming. Sometimes you go to a church and you walk in and people don't sit in my pew. You know what I mean? They're protecting their space. But when I went there, everybody just literally everybody moved over, and I thought, wow, everybody kind of wants me here. And they didn't really know me. So that was kind of the moment when I realized maybe I'll stay here. Maybe this is the place. So that's how we came to Hillcrest.
And they didn't really know what they were getting into by moving
They
over.
They probably all regret it now. They're probably
So you have a really neat gift set for ministry, and you have a real passion for ministry. Could you mind sharing about some of the ways that you serve at the church, and maybe some of your favorite moments of serving at Hillcrest?
I tend to gravitate towards the people that are more in my mental age group. So very young. I tend to be a big kid, so I like I've always really enjoyed the youth group, doing the young adults as well. Just that kind of stuff. I think that I've always kind of liked to be the front line stuff. The CE team is the first time I've accepted a position on a board. I've always kind of, for whatever reason, veered away from that. They're super important ministries, don't get me wrong, and there's great people on them. I just kind of like to, I'm that guy that when we had our family gatherings, I wanted to sit at the kids' table when I was 40. So that's just me right there. And so I love the youth ministry a lot. And we got a great group now. The kids, when you open that discussion up, the kids, you're just blown away with the stuff they say. And it's a lot of fun too. I think the moments that stick with me is Jamie Hall. One thing he said to us years ago, and he was right, was if there's 30 kids here, 5 of them are going to care if you're here. 5 of them won't even know your name, and the rest of them will just be like, "Hey, Paul," and that was a great, but when you get those 5 or whatever it is that actually look for you every week, then it's a big deal, right? Because then you realize you have a chance to make an impact, right? If you live the right way, and you can tell them about God, and get rid of this idea that God is I like to get rid of the idea that God is some kind of a rule maker that's testing you every day, and that's what people get wrong. And one of the things I try to let the God actually wants you to have fun. What He wants you to do is here's my commandments and my warnings, not rules, but warnings. These are the things that are going to mess your life up. If you do this, and this, you're going to have problems. And He's trying to protect us. So if you can gain the trust of someone, then there's that opportunity to explain that to them, to get it across to them that this is God's trying to protect you here, right? You know what I mean? So I think that's a key thing. One of the things I think when you run into a youth that you haven't seen in 10 years or that hasn't been, it comes back to the church, and the first thing they do is run over and talk to you, and it's just so nice to see that their life is going in the right direction and that they're doing well. I think that's rewarding. I had a young man in Regen. I won't mention his name. He was an atheist. by his own admission. We said, that's fine. We want you here. He was only there because his girlfriend was a Christian, and she was a friend of Marley's. And she didn't go to our church, but she came to Regen because they didn't have a young adults group of hers. Well, he was resistant to everything we said. We did a thing on creation. He looked at the rest of the group one night and said, he's crazy. And they said, no, he's not. And they said, he goes, you're all crazy. And they said, no, we're not. And then I explained to him things a little more. And by the time I went through the 3-week thing on creation, his mind was not, I wouldn't say opened, but he was a little more open-minded is the best way to look at it. And he was now asking questions about what he'd been taught through school, which some of it's right and some of it's, not. So anyways, he was there for a little while longer. He's a little more open to things. And then him and the girl broke up. Another thing I've been taught years ago is you're just planting seeds. So I would pray that hopefully there's a few seeds that got planted and maybe someone else will down the road will pick it up. The girl stopped coming to Regen. She'd moved away. She moved back to St. John. Marty bumped into her and said, what's been going on? And they did their back and forth, what's going on. And then she said, remember, and again, I'll avoid his name. Remember so-and-so that I used to date? And she goes, yeah. She goes, I ran into him. Guess what he's doing now? And Marty said, what? He's helping with a youth group at another church. So, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, they were right. Like you plant the seeds and you just say some prayers and then you hope that at some point in time, that God's already working in his heart at some point in time that they come to understand who God is. Because I think people get who God is wrong. I think they get it. Not everybody. I know a lot of people at Hillcrest have it right, but if you're not a Christian and you haven't read the Bible, there is all this misinformation about who God is out there. And I think I love the chance for the young people to let them know who he really is.
Yeah. I find the same thing.
Yeah.
So many people have this, I don't know if it's Hollywood or just their own experiences or just, they hear this mean God who doesn't love them because they're bad.
Yeah. Right. Well, so we'd all be in trouble there if that was the case.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. So from one father of the bride to another father of the bride, we just interviewed AJ and Marley not too long ago. Do you have any advice for me? My daughter's getting married here next month. Do you have any advice for me? Or maybe you could share some of your experiences of what it's been like being the father of a bride or father of the bride during a pandemic?
Yeah, that was quite an experience. I felt so bad for Marley and AJ when they started to really shut down. Marley was actually at the point of thinking that, she could not be able to even see AJ at some point. Like she won't be able to even go to his house because he'll be. She was worried he'd be isolating alone, and then because he was living in the apartment, obviously she wasn't, and she was worried about that. She had so many things on her mind. Her biggest fear, and this was the one that we told her, this won't happen. That if she was thinking about just having a small wedding quickly. She was afraid of hurting people because she thought, they're going to all be mad at me for not, but they came to the decision with your help and without our help, but basically their decision 100% that what they really wanted was just to be married. I think just to be, and they could do this. We told we can do all the money's still sitting in the bank, everything's booked. We'll just do the celebration. We'll just switch it to next year. And I think the number one advice I could give you as a father is just go along with whatever they want to do. We just said, Marty, what do you want to do? This is about you and AJ, and it really is about the bride and the groom. I mean, everybody else is involved, and I know Emily wants their people involved, and it's really about the bride and the groom. As told Marty, it's all about you two and God, and the rest of us are just there to celebrate. So we can celebrate next year, and you can, I think that here's one thing you probably don't want to do at the wedding is say, I want grandchildren, hurry up and get her done. That didn't go over well with Marley. AJ laughed, but now that you're married, and Marty went, oh, Dad, you said you wouldn't say that. I don't think I said that.
Yeah, I think it's a dad's job to, embarrass their child at least once a day.
Once a day is my quota, but I sometimes beat that. I've done it. It's not even 11 o'clock today, and I've already done it, so it's great. Hi, Marley.
You're ahead of the game, man. I gotta up my game. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go embarrass my daughter. And
no, Emily. Emily and Zach sent me a private message, and I thought it was very nice. And he was expressing that they may be down to 50 people. We may not be able to go, and how much we mean to them, and all that. And I was like, you know what, Zach? we're just so happy that they're getting married that, you know what, that's not even like we're not even the least bit bothered. We're just so happy that they're getting married.
That's
You
right.
know what I mean? And if they have to go down to 10 people, then go down to 10 people. If they can have 1,000, whatever whatever works out. The important thing, and maybe this is a male thing, so if the ladies out there don't get mad at me because I know how important the wedding day is, but the important thing is the marriage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The important thing is to be married. So, and I respect all the people that are waiting a year. I totally get that. That's fine. Um, but it's the marriage is the important thing. The wedding is a beautiful celebration. Um, but I'm just, I told Zach, we're just so happy for you guys that's whether we can be there or not doesn't matter. I just, you know what I mean? They're a lovely couple. I just want to see them be as happy as Marty and AJ are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 So recently, you ended up on the cover of a magazine,
A
and
book. It's
I've got
actually a
a.
book.
It's actually a book. Okay, I'll get a
It's a
picture of
book.
that. I'm going to put that here in the video in a second so people can
Yeah.
see. What was that all about? Can you mind sharing a little bit what happened there?
Okay, what it is some people may know what a pulp novel is. Some of the older people may know what a pulp novel is. The heyday they started in the late 1800s, and then the heyday was the 30s and early 40s. And what it was, they're small 200-page novels, um, and they either one full story or like broken up into two or three. And in the 30s, it was like Doc Savage and The Shadow and Green Hornet, and that's where they actually started. And there's been a revival of that in the last 10 years or so, using those characters and other. I mean, and also a lot of the Tarzan novels were actually pulp novels, and just there's been a revival of the pulp novels. As people know, I generally write comic books, but I have a friend that I met years ago is a very well known comic book writer named Ron Forte, and Ron has kind of been like a mentor. I used to send him stuff in the snail mail, and he'd email back or for snail mail back what I'm doing right or wrong. And then I connected with him again on Facebook, and I've been kind of following his company, Airship 27, and they were putting out waiting for the right book for me because I do write prose as well as comics. And then he put out the call out there for a Three Musketeer story. And I thought, whoa, I got a Three Musketeer story right in my head. I haven't wrote it down, but it's been in my head for 2 years. So and he's read my comic book stuff as well. So I messaged him and said, I have a Three Musketeer story. And he said, send me something. And I said, did you want me to submit, like do a submission, which means an audition? He said, no, Paul, I know you're writing. Just send me the story. I'm like, wow, that's great. One of my idols just wants the story. So I wrote it. He loved it. It's little people don't know this, but Cardinal Richelieu was a real person, the one from the novel, the bad guy. He's a real person. He was a cardinal and also the prime minister of France, I believe, for a while. He greatly affected the history of St. John because he gave Delaunay Nova Scotia, and the king gave Latour New Brunswick, basically, or they both gave them the same, and their territories overlapped. So that's what started the Acadian Civil War. So I thought, well, if Richelieu was involved, why shouldn't the Musketeers be involved? So I have this story where I wrote the Three Musketeers are involved in what happened at Fort Latour, on the side of Latour. So I wrote the story, he accepted it, and I thought this is great. And it's being published. Probably should have been published by now, but COVID slows everything down. So it's been published, and it's going to be published rather soon. It's waiting on a few art. There are some art pages in the middle of there, but not a lot. But excuse me. So that put me into the new pulp world. Not just comic, the new pulp world, but what happened is recently they collected all the writers and artists from the 17 companies that are part of the new pulp movement, and they wanted write-ups and pictures. So being that I have a story on the verge of coming out, they put me in there, and then somehow I ended up on the cover. So
I don't think there's any mistake on why that was. I mean, look
well,
at you. It's just,
I think that they just wanted a model, but they couldn't find one. They thought, we'll use Paul. But the funny
yeah.
thing is now there's multiple pictures on the cover, and I'm in the left-hand corner, and some of the words cover the bottom half of my face, like a Mike Wazowski situation. So as you pointed out, which I thought was funny. But yeah, that's coming out, and this is the other thing that's coming out. COVID's kind of slowed things down. I should be a first-level professional writer. Like I've been climbing that ladder for years, with the Three Musketeers story in the pulp book, and also with the I have a book called a story called Hidden Island, which is supposed to be in a book called Jungle Comics, which is which is a company that sells all across North America and all the comic shops in North America. So it sells on the next on the shelf to Spider-Man and Batman type of thing. And in the first story is in the book is written by a gentleman named Chuck Dixon. He used to write the Batman book, so he's quite famous in the industry. The second story is by Ben Dunn. The hot new Netflix show right now is called Warrior Nun. That's Ben Dunn's. And then there's little old me and my friend Jenny Godden and doing the backstory. So it's a huge break for me. You know, it's like someone says you're going to play a game in the NHL tonight, and here's your line mates, Connor McDavid and Draisaitl or whatever. That's kind of what it's like. Unfortunately, COVID shut the entire comic book industry down for a while, and it is coming back, but it's crawling back. And as of yet, Jungle Comics, the issue that I'm in, is not out yet. So all my dreams of becoming a professional writer, actually getting paid a little bit, they're on hold. But it's coming. I have faith that it's coming.
All the roadblocks, right? It's so crazy.
It's you know what? I started publishing stuff locally in around 1985, 86 with a good friend of mine, Jim Hashi, also a Christian, by the way. And we've been at it since then. So I can handle 6 more months or whatever it takes. It's a long, big ladder to climb, put it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So not only are you professional writer, I'm going to call you professional. You're on the cover of a book, so I'm going to call you a professional writer.
I will be a professional writer in a couple of months.
Yeah, that's right.
When the checks arrive.
That's right. So you've brought home gold medals, and I don't know if everybody knows that. Can you mind sharing a little bit about what the story behind you bringing home a gold medal?
Okay, so I'm what they call a late bloomer in everything, like literally everything in my life. Like the writing I did for like 35 years to get where I'm at. It's similar with the ball hockey. I've competed in ball hockey my entire life, so as far back as I was 13 years old, competitively. And I was not the greatest player. I was pretty good, but I wasn't great. So I always wanted to be in the top division. So I figured the best way to do that, go make your own team. So I learned to scout. I learned to run things, take care of the money. And my team, my men's and women's teams would go to a lot of nationals and stuff. I always very ambitious about it. I always had a big dreams about it, right? But my dream was to go to nationals. I never thought about going past that, even though there is a worlds. But I went to like eight CBHA tournaments with my ladies team and a couple with the men's, and then. What happens is you get to know everybody. The same teams end up going at least once every 2 or 3 years. You start to see the same faces, and you get kind of known. Well, we had some success with my team, the Storm, and my team, the Red Leaves, the 2 women's teams that I coached. And I was sitting in the rink watching the finals one year. My team didn't make it to the finals, and the president of the Brunswick comes over and says, or signals me over, and I sat down. She goes, so she said, Sophie's not going to be running the national team. And I knew who that was, Sophie Dagenet. It was the GM. I said, really? I said, that's a shock. She goes, well, she's, it's time for someone else. And I said, wow. And they said, and then my friend Sheila, who's the president, said, they're looking at you. I'm like, I literally didn't answer. I went, what? I just kind of, oh, she goes, I think you should put your resume in. So I just got up and walked like a zombie, sat next to Betty, didn't even watch the game, just stared front. And Betty goes, what's wrong? I said, they're looking at me for the national team. And Betty goes, you got to take it. And I still couldn't even process it because, it's beyond what I had dreamt about. So I went home and I applied for it. And come to find out the application process was, if you say, yes, we want you. Because I had gotten teams all the way to Calgary. And I mean, I was used to doing that. And the national team's a very big budget. It's a lot of scouting. I'd done a lot of scouting too, right? It was a dream come true. My mind was pretty much blown by it. But I eased into it eventually. And I'll tell you what it was. It was a ton of work, but I loved every minute of it. And Betty was amazing about it. So were the kids. Like if they had a game that night and I had to do work, they just said, okay, Dad, we'll see you later. It was an hour on the computer, phone calls, paperwork, the budget. I was in contact daily with people. You have like 25 people involved in a team like this. The first Worlds was I did it for 4 years. Worlds is every 2 years. So there's a build up to it. The first one was in Slovakia. We got made the finals. We had one goal against us the whole year, or the whole tournament. It was in the finals. We lost 1-0. It was one of those bounce goals. We pelted their goalie with shots. She's very good. She plays in the Russian Professional League in the winter. She had the game of her life, and they won 1-0. So I went home and told Betty, well, I got a silver medal. This is wonderful. I am probably not going to be the GM any longer. We won the previous 2 worlds. But they were happy with the job I did. And they brought back me and Coach Chris Pellerin, who in ball hockey circles, a lot of people know her. You guys wouldn't. She's basically the Scotty Bowman of women's ball hockey. She coached the national team for like 4 worlds and won 3 of them. You know what I mean? And silver the other time. So I got my second chance. This one was going to be in St. John's, Newfoundland. So instead of their home city, our home city. It was an amazing experience. Having a worlds in your own country is completely different. You just feel the support from the community like you wouldn't believe, right? I mean, they had 2,200 fans cheering and beating drums in Slovakia, so it was nice to have the rink that we played the finals at. It held about as much as the Qplex or more, so about 1,100 people were there cheering. So that was a big deal, and we won. The number one lesson we learned in 2011 was that we need tall players. She was a very tall goalie. She's seeing every shot was our one problem. We put a little bit of more size and grit in front of the net. We scouted for that. By size, I don't mean big. I mean tall. Gotta be careful that women's team. I told the girl she's playing big one night, and that's a compliment to a guy. That means you're playing above your size. You're playing with guts. And she asked me if I thought she was fat. So you gotta be careful of that one. But we won 2-0, and so yeah, it's hard to explain what it's like when you've been in a sport for as long as I was, and then now you're at the pinnacle, and they're handing you a trophy that's as big as a Stanley Cup almost, and you're standing there going. And my first thought was when I looked at the trophy was, how did I get here? Like it's a shocking experience, and you're so happy that it's overwhelming. I don't know how to describe it, because I love the sport so much, and my kids both play, and my wife played. My buddy played for 19 years and had there been a national team in her day, she might have been on it. And my kids have both won provincials and league and competed at the A level, and at the national level. And it's just, it's a family thing that we're all big into.
Awesome. So as we kind of come to the close of our interview, I always like to give people a chance to add anything. Is there anything that you'd like to share that I didn't get to ask you that you'd like to share with everybody?
I think it's hard to word this. I think if anything COVID's taught us is how much we miss our church family.
Yeah.
I think it's hard not to reopen. We can't. I was looking at the Facebook today, and Andy Stanley, who has one of the mega churches, and he's under some pressure. We used his thing in Regen one year, remember? It's hard to tell, he's got a big church, to tell people we got to wait a little bit. But we do, in my opinion, we do have to be. I'd rather be overly cautious and not have anybody get sick than not be cautious and one person come into the church that has it, not knowing, and then suddenly 20 people have it. But it's taught us how much our church family means. Most of us at this point can see our actual family, like our birth families, but we can't really see our church family that much. So that's hard right now. I really miss the youth a lot. I really, the youth group we have this year is so much fun. Like, we've always had fun with youth groups. Don't get me wrong. If you're looking at this and you were there in like 2010, don't get this wrong. I'm not comparing them to that group, but the group we have a fun group right now. We've had lots of fun groups. This is one of the fun groups to have. I'm missing them really bad. Like, I really was getting to like some of them so much. So I'm missing that. And it just went from like 5 kids to like 20 in like a 4-month period, where all of a sudden, and I really miss that right now. I really miss that connection. I miss teasing Dick May about his age. I haven't had a chance to do that. And I know I shouldn't pick on you, Dick. You're 110. I should be nicer than that, but I do. I try to be nice, but I miss stuff like that. I miss, I miss going up to the carrying closet and talking to George, or getting myself a Bruins jersey or something from him. I miss I miss all that. I mean, just dropping into your office and hanging out. I miss all that stuff. I miss greeting everybody and seeing everybody at the church. You know what I mean? I get to talk to Brad on Facebook, but I don't get to see Brad and Julie and them and see the kids and get a hug from the kids. All that stuff that was just taken for granted. It was just a weekly thing. And it was just, and you loved it. You know what I mean? Look forward to it. I really think that all of us probably feel that way. Because we'll get through this. This will get cured. Yeah. But I'm missing church. Yeah. But I'm missing everybody and just hanging in there and just taking comfort in God and that our leaders are doing the right thing and praying for them every day. But I'm missing everybody, and I'll be glad when I can walk in there and I'm not a good social distancing guy. I've had to learn that. I'm better than Sean. I don't hug everybody, but I definitely run over to people to talk to them all the time. But it's still, the church is still the church. That's the beautiful thing. The church is still, when we had Marley's shower, it had to be virtual, and they had to drop it off in her trunk while she sat back. And so many people came, and it was just such an uplift for her, because it happened that she had to do the shower the day after her uncle died, which we couldn't even have a proper funeral, and people couldn't come and give us a hug, and because COVID was bad then, and we had 10 people at the funeral. We did a beautiful service, by the way. Everybody was comforted by it greatly. So I think the moment that we were comforted was actually the virtual shower, when we just had to sit back, and we had just found out that he had passed, and there was all these people from the church. They were able to talk to us at least about it, and they were able to give their gift to Marley, and they were able to talk about it. And then the next night when Marley did the virtual shower, it was such an uplifting moment for her and AJ, and the people in the church have found a way to connect. So that's great. You know what I mean? If it's a drive-by birthday for Gwen upstairs, you're still connecting. If it's a drive-by hello to Jeremy Vikers when he gets home, people are finding a way to connect. And that shows you how much the church family matters, and their genetic family matters, and how much their friendship families matters, and all those families that they have, and their teams, their sports teams, and stuff like that. People are finding a way to connect, and I think that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, would you mind close us in a little word of prayer?
Yeah.
And then, thank you.
God, I just thank you for our church family. I just thank you for all the blessings that come from that. We talked a lot today, God, about the different blessings in my life, and some of which I just don't even know why. You've blessed me so much, God, but you have with a beautiful family, and all the experiences I've had with the different teams I've been involved in, and with the writing and the friends I made through that. And God, I want to thank you for the blessing of my church family. I miss them, but they'll be there when it's time to come back, and they're still there. And I'm blessing my own family as well, God, and my friends that I have, like Andrew and several others. And I just thank you that the youth group is so revived. Everything is going so well with it, and that the kids are so great, God. I miss the kids, and I call them kids, but I'm 57, so I get to do that. I call 20-year-olds kids, God. You know that. I just thank you for that blessing. And God, I just pray that when this is all over, and when we go back to church, all the same faces will be there, God, healthy and happy. Then we go back to youth group, the kids will all be there, healthy and happy. And I can run around the church again, playing all the games like a teenager. Love you, God, and thank you for everything.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your stories. And my friend Jason likes to say, I'm blessed, and it's not my fault.
Yeah, I feel that way a lot.
Yeah, I like that. Well, everybody who's watching, thank you for taking part in today. We'll see you Sunday morning at 10:30. And Lord bless you, keep you, and cause his face to shine upon you. Take care now.
See you later. Bye-bye.